I have four takeaways on yesterday's game where the Saints went to LA and lost to the Chargers 27-13. One of them's borderline rant, very disappointed in the first because of the first takeaway. The other three, maybe some good things stuck in there, but overall, I don't really think it was a good day for the Saints. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. I almost started this video yesterday evening or last night, but I felt like I needed to take a little step back, being a little too emotional and not objective enough. Going to try to do that in this video. But I think the biggest takeaway for me, outside of some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, that was more the talk yesterday. I was just upset that almost from the very beginning of the game, we saw a lot of the same mistakes that has plagued this team for the last 3 or 4 seasons. And I really wanted, I know it's not going to be a perfectly clean game, especially with younger players playing as much as they did. We did sit uh, some key veterans on both sides of the ball. So I get that. I'm taking that with a grain of salt. You're definitely not going to be perfect in a football game, and damn sure not on the first preseason game. But I didn't want to see mistakes that cost you games no matter who you play against, no matter what the situation is. I understand this is basically a glorified scrimmage, but it doesn't matter when it comes to very early on pre-snap penalties. Rumpf on a 2nd and 7, you kind of got him where you want. It's going to jump off sides, basically give him a free play, which they didn't take advantage of, but you still gave him 5 yards. Kilty later on has a false start on offense. Radens in an illegal formation. These are the things that in the past have just stifled drives, and you definitely can't afford to do it right now when you're trying to find a young quarterback. Um, Broughton, really, on an extra point, not out there, goes running out, well, lines up incorrectly over the center, gets an illegal formation call. So instead of going for taking the extra point, they decide to go for two after the penalty. Luckily, Stutsman, who we'll talk about later, gets involved in that and stops the 2-point conversion. Then you have penalties during the play that kills your drive, or in one glaring instance, kept a touchdown drive, what ultimately was a touchdown, a drive for life for the Chargers. But Penning gets hit with a holding call. Radens, who just did not have a good game, in another situation gets called for holding. You had the Chargers kind of, it wasn't deep, but you had them backed up a little bit in their own territory, ready to get off the field and get some likely pretty decent field position on a 3rd and 15. Rumpf might have actually had a sack on that. I'm still not sure which way they were calling that. On if it wasn't, it was an incompletion. Either way, we were getting the ball back with really good or decently good field position or a chance thereof. Rico Payton has a face mask penalty down the field, automatic first down. They drive down, get points. Get 3 turnovers. The Chargers scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal off those 3 turnovers. And then you add on the penalty on that play we were just talking about with Rico Payton. You had 4 huge mistakes that they wound up with 3 touchdowns and a field goal out of. Look, again, I don't care who you're playing. You can't overcome stuff like that. Now, we hadn't even got to the fact that you took 5 sacks on the day. Some of that was on the offensive line at times. Some of that was definitely on the quarterbacks. And sometimes I felt like they could have went either way, where neither one actually did what they really needed to do to get a play off. You end up getting pegged for 7 penalties for 56 yards. You only converted 23% of your third downs, less than a quarter. All stuff coming back to haunt us. Red zone opportunities, you had 2. You managed to walk away with only a field goal. Now, in all fairness, preseason game, maybe in the first quarter, you go for that 4th down to see if we can get the ball in the end zone. We got stuffed. Maybe regular season, you might take the points there. But either way, you did not score touchdowns in either attempt in the red zone. Another problem that we've had the last couple of years. You gave up 148 yards rushing. And in that, there's a little bit of good news and bad news. The bad news, let's get that out the way. We still can't stop a mobile quarterback. Trey Lance gashed to 7 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. Average 6.8, almost 6.9 a carry. Rocket Sanders comes in. Now, this, I get it. This was late in the game. Even for, preseason game, probably a little garbage time. 10 for 42 with a touchdown, 4.25 yards per carry. Touchdown was not a good play by Foskey, it seems, on the outside, and more on him later. Their primary runners, and Haskins also in that time was 6 for 33 for 5.5. But earlier on, you outside of Lance, when it was kind of the ones and the twos, Vidal and Hines were getting a lot of touches. They combined 10 carries for 26 yards. In spread along there, you missed several tackles, some of them key, where some of these runs, had you ever been able to tackle, you're going to take a lot of yards off that. But you miss a tackle, and they do the right thing. When you miss a tackle, they go gain chunk yards. Something we've seen too much of the last 2, 3, 4 seasons. Saints rushing attack could get the ball going, which is a huge, huge problem. Now, our quarterbacks, almost like the Chargers, 5 for 32 for a 6.4 average, but the running backs touching the ball, 15 for 29. You don't even get 2 yards at 1.9 on the average. Now, I looked per PFF, the team stats this morning, and was shocked to find some numbers in there. Total plays, Saints at 67, Chargers 57. Total yards, 292 for us, 246 for them. Average yards per play, 4.4 for us, 4.3 for them. Possessions, we had 13, they had 11. Average yards per drive, we had 20.9, they had 20.5. Red zone, we were 1 for 2 with just a field goal. They were 3 for 6, scored 2 touchdowns. Time of possession, we had it for 31 minutes. They had it 31 minutes, 8 seconds. They had it for 28 minutes, 52 seconds. Some of those numbers, you just roll through there. You're thinking, well, we're in the game at least with a chance to win, but not when you pile up mistakes like we piled them up. And song and dance that we know full well, because time and time again, lose close games with a chance to win, keep teams we feel like we should beat in the game and end up losing. That was a staple of the DA era, and I was really hoping, if not praying, we were going to eliminate some of this, and it popped up. Now, it felt like we spent yesterday, basically 4 quarters, just reliving our past seasons, okay? If we lose 27-13 with limited mistakes, I can live with that, but I can't do it with just these piling up, giving them extra possessions off turnovers, extra yardage, um, penalties, setting ourselves back when we're on offense, making it harder on an offense that's got it hard enough on them already. Now, look, I understand. Like I said, this is a glorified scrimmage, and I'm really not trying to read too much or too little in any of the player, any of the stuff we saw, but just that basic fundamentals. Don't commit dumb penalties. Don't miss tackles. You know, don't turn the ball over. Just maddening and frustrating. Look, till those problems get fixed. I mean, and just the biggest takeaway that I can wrap this up with is you have zero chance of winning anything if this continues to happen. I'm expecting this coaching staff to um, eliminate this, because the previous one couldn't, and we were what we were, and we're going to continue to be that until we get it fixed. Now, on a slightly positive note to the scheme, like I said, a lot of young players and some growing pains involved, not just at quarterback, but throughout the game. We were even substituting early. We were moving people around, offensively and defensively on the line of scrimmage, some by necessity, I think some by design, just to see what was going to happen. So I realized some of these mistakes are a result of that. And in a way, you do have to kind of experiment in the games. But I cannot lay all of it on that. Can't. Some of that is past problems creeping back into the current team, and we can't have it. Now on the rundown, I got passing game Jekyll and Hyde, and this is one where at times I was really excited to see what I was seeing, at other times I was face buried in hands type situation. Really was a Jekyll Hyde experience. Seemed like for the most part, it was either very good or very, very not good, bad, terrible, whatever adjective you want to use there. Didn't seem to be a whole lot of middle ground. Um, Overall, I feel like when we were protecting up front, and for the most part we did, but when we didn't, my God, did we miss horribly and bad things happen. And decision making from the quarterback, when it was good, that's where most of our success was. But it seemed like when the protection missed, like I said, it missed. You had guys whiffing and free runners coming in there. And when a quarterback made a bad decision, he made it spectacularly bad. I don't even know how I feel about that. I felt like all three quarterbacks definitely could have played better. I felt like at times Rattler seemed to be on the verge of and he had a couple drives early that were close. And you're like, man, he's almost ready to make some plays. Then he didn't. Shuck, I felt like came in that 2 minute drill, ran it pretty effectively, and if not by this much, missing a potential touchdown pass to Kevin Austin Jr. We all saw the pick six. We all saw some of the other throws, and then we also saw some of the other throws that were like, man, really spinning the ball or really making a good decision. Very much high and low. Hayner, more on him later. Um, so when we were efficient, we managed to hit plays in the passing game. Um, One thing I noticed, regardless of protection or quarterback decision making, we had pass catchers, specifically the wide receivers, seemed to be breaking open constantly in that game. So you feel like, or at least I do, clean up more of those protection issues and quarterbacks make better decisions, or in some cases, make them a little bit quicker. In some cases, maybe the timing was off a little bit. The pass wasn't quite there, but it was a good. That's where you're supposed to throw it. You just got to be on time and on target. Um, so can clean up some of those problems. You're going to see a bigger improvement there. But most of all, protect the ball. I think we had some struggles with all the quarterbacks with just a pocket presence, feeling the pressure, understanding where it was coming from. Again, not making decisions quick enough sometimes. Um, there was a couple out there. I think the ball should have been out faster or should have ran it a second earlier. I kind of look back to that drive where we got stuffed on the 4th and goal. Prior to that, Rattler made a couple of good scrambles, but in the second one that got us down almost 1 or 2 yard line, got us close. It felt like, man, one heartbeat faster if he takes off running. He as close as he got, he gets a little closer, might be able to get in there for the touchdown. Stuff they could all pick up and learn, but it's still frustrating to watch at times. Guys breaking wide open or the throwing the ball in coverage where you watch the replay and you're like, had a check down available. Somebody was open in a shorter route or intermediate route, not seeing it, not realizing it, or trying to force a ball where it shouldn't go. And in some cases, not throwing a good pass on top of that and putting yourself even more at risk with the decision. So I think at times it was efficient. I think at times they were on time and on target on throws. And talking specifically about Rattler and Shuck, at times they avoided scramble. They did have a pocket presence. They got away from pressure. They scrambled, picked up yards when they needed to, or threw the ball away, or got a throw on somebody at least, where the ball wasn't in danger. And if somebody can make a catch, they're going to pick up yards. And at times they didn't. At times they put the ball at risk. At times they were unaware, like we said, of pressure or having a pocket presence or internal clock. I need to get rid of the ball. I need to throw it away. I need to not take negative play. And we end up taking the negative play. And they were devastating every single time it happened because you're playing a good football team who 11 win team in the playoffs last year. Every time we effed up, they took advantage of it. It's no way to live in the NFL. But the way you can live in the NFL is taking a glimpse of when things go right and being effective and efficient when you're running the offense, and even some of the instances we had on defense. It's the stuff we got to buy into, lean into, and do a better job of. Um, I did like the play of Kevin Austin Jr., Cedric Wilson Jr., and Dante Pettis for the most part downfield because, like I said, I kept seeing them, and even Mason Tipton, we'll get to him in a second, breaking open. So the ball would have been coming to him, felt pretty confident because when they did get the ball for the most part, when protection held up, decisions were made, they caught the ball and made some plays. And it's exciting to see that in the offense. At least we're kind of clicking there a little bit. And we had our top two receivers sitting this game out. So I hopeful encouragement, this can work. But overall, like I said, it was a Jekyll and Hyde. And the offense completely overall, if we can't run the ball, we are going to continue to probably have protection issues and bad decision making from or incorrect decision making from young quarterbacks because no effective run game, we're going to be putting these guys at risk constantly with long down and distance. And when you saw it happen yesterday, it was bad. We get ahead of the chains and move the ball. We had the good 2-minute drive, and we pick up a key first down and able to hit Tipton over the top for a long touchdown pass on a beautifully thrown ball. Again, those are the things, the Dr. Jekyll part of the offense where you're like, okay, this isn't bad. It's the ugly things that kept kind of rearing in completely in the running game and at times in the passing game, and it just wasn't enough overall to overcome anything you did wrong, which, as we talked in the previous segment, was quite a bit. One more name I want to mention is Velus Jones Jr. Okay, I get it after watching him just yesterday. There's no doubt if you can get him in space with the ball, he's going to be a problem for special teams and defenses around the league. There's no doubt. Um, Got to figure out a way to do it. Some of the stuff they tried didn't really work with the reverse play down by the goal line when he came in along with Kendre Miller. We're both in the game at the same time. Swing pass to him that we miss a block and he gets blown up in the backfield for a 4-yard loss. But then later on, just in like little checkdowns, he gets the ball and you're like, holy crap, he can make people miss and run by you in a heartbeat. And then on a kickoff return, just, seemed like a step or so away from just housing that thing. So I like what I saw there. I don't know how much you can get out of him, how much you can use from him. Don't know if we're keeping 4 running backs or 5, where he fits into the scheme. But I'm looking at him going, he's a weapon that we have to figure out a way to use effectively, because if we can keep putting pieces on the field that with one touch can house it out the backfield and out at receiver, again, that will help solve a lot of your protection issues, quarterback play, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just having explosive guys that only need to touch the ball once to hit a big play. Mason Tipton comes to mind on the 50 plus yard touchdown catch. Now, I was excited to see some young players playing really well. They flashed out there on the field. They made you notice them. And there was 5 of them that I came away with quite impressed. Have to start with Danny Stutsman. Played the whole first half, 25 total snaps, was wearing the green dot. So he was out there calling the defense. And for the most part, that was the ones and the twos, kind of getting substituted in and out in some cases. Some cases, ones played briefly and then the twos came in. So I, I was amazed. He always seemed to, he only had, I say only 3 total tackles. I think it was 2 tackles and assists is what he was credited with. 47 was all over the place. Like every time I turned around and saw a pile, saw movement, saw a ball being thrown downfield or a run, 47 was in the area. Love to see that from a linebacker. So does Fergus. And the type of player we need to add into this defense, and where we can develop. He can study behind a guy that's going to the Hall of Fame and Demario Davis, and then be ready to step in. We thought Werner was that guy. I think we all agree Werner does some things very, very well, but he's not Demario, but for sure. And you look at Stutsman, you watch film in Oklahoma, you hear him talk about him, you hear him talk about training camp, you see some highlights, then you watch him play the game, and you're looking at him going, there's really something special about this guy that they can tap into. And again, young player still needs to develop, but if they can do it, I think you really have something there. And I think he showed it in the first half yesterday. Another one, I'm extremely excited about this one because I spent most of the last season and mentioned it a few times this season in videos going, where the hell is Christian Boyd? Like, not even on the field, not being able to make game day rosters. Then big man shows up yesterday and inches away from a sack that should have been a safety, or could have been a safety, I should say. Um, and for the most part, 19 snaps on the day. I did not see him much in the, if at all, in the second half. I don't remember it. So I think all those snaps came early. He was not getting pushed around in there. I think he held up really well, grabbed a couple tackles, had the big sack. I mean, that was a really good play, and that was still. I'm not sure if that was the Chargers' first or second team O line, but it doesn't really matter because everybody's playing against the same people, and he was one of the few defenders that really made one big play in the interior, I should say, made one big play. But I really can't look at it and say he got blown up on that play or he screwed up badly. I think it was very solid, and he is a big man, and we need some big men to get in there and control that middle of that defensive line to help stop the running game. And as we mentioned earlier in this section, outside of when Trey Lance came in and started running on us, for the most part, we held their running game in check. So somewhat of a positive, still not as much as a positive I would like, but I feel like Christian Boyd did his job in that. We're going to move to another high energy player to go with Stutsman. In fact, the next two, and one of them is Isaiah Stalbert. And this goes back to my brother-in-law, the sports accountant, who's been high on this guy since last year. I kind of started to buy into it last year in this offseason. He grabbed 25 snaps yesterday, special teams and at linebacker. Man, he was a heat-seeking missile all day. Special teams, defense, 7 total tackles to lead the team, 1 tackle for loss. Put Fadil Diggs, one of our rookie seventh round picks, as an edge player. He grabbed 40 snaps yesterday, 4 total tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses. Look, flying all over the field, just like Stutsman and Stalbert. I love seeing that from young guys. These 3 guys played with just extreme high energy, and Diggs was doing a lot of coming from the edge. Look, y'all had to have noticed if you watched the game, 4-0 out there, a lot of times right next to 4-7, and or in the second half 4-4, which is Stalbert's number, coming from the backside of plays in pursuit, getting involved in the area, ready to make a play, and he did it on one. He cleaned up, and we'll talk about in the next segment. He cleaned up a play for a player who I think everybody's going to agree is trending down. Got to mention Torricelli Simpkins, the third. I don't think he was expected to play 65 or the 67 offensive snaps, but Will Clapp went down early. He came in at center. I do not know if he played some guard or not. I think it was mostly at center, but I'm not 100% positive on that. He played basically every offensive snap after Clapp went down and held up quite well. Thought he was effective by virtue of the fact didn't get flagged for a penalty. And unlike some of the veteran offensive linemen that we brought in to be backups that also going to make an appearance in the next segment, he didn't do anything where they spotlighted the camera on him and said he missed the block. He did this. He didn't do that. There was none of that. The only time you saw a highlight of him is probably the block of the day in pass protection when he snaps the ball. There's nobody on him. He's looking towards both gaps on either side of him, and goes left first and slams into a guy to help out the guard, takes care of him, turns around, realizes the other guard's engaged. Well, I'm going to go help him clean that up too. Love seeing that. I saw Jamon Bushrod on um, one of the post game shows last night, and yeah, he was really pumped to see a young player do something like that. He's like, "Look, that's pro stuff right there." Now, I saw some tweets right before I started filming this from Ross Jackson. I think this was from his film review because he was talking about he rewatched the film this morning and started just kind of posting some thoughts. So I'm assuming this is from there, but he may have pulled this from one of the official stat sites. But Simpkins is credited with only giving up one pressure. In 65 snaps, as many pass attempts that were in there, one time was he credited with giving up a pressure. That's holding up quite well in a tough spot. He's the third team guy. Second team guy manages to play only 2 plays. Rolls in like it's nothing and goes, I got this. You got to love that. That's giving me goosebumps just talking about it. Going, we keep finding young players like that and some of the other Diggs and Stutsman. Get Boyd and Stalbert going. That's something to truly get excited about. I don't know if they or that kind of stuff can help you this year, but I think 2 things are apparent. It will help you in the future, specifically with those players, and get back in the habit of developing players like that. We used to be really good at it. We have not been for the last couple of years. Going to wrap it up with some not so good news about some players. We sustained 4, possibly 5 injuries in the game yesterday. Well, Clapp went down early. Trevor Penning went down. Um, and at first, that one sounded bad from immediate Twitter reporting that he left on the cart to the locker room. But then it was said later that he had taken his shoes off and he was walking around. Then he got on the cart. So not really sure and no clue what either one of their injuries are. But Means went down. He was carted off, and that one sounded serious. We saw Mason Pline go down. He left the game. And Tyler Shuck got banged up on a play. I think it was in a pile. His knee was kind of limping around a little bit. And then that was right. Hayner came in right after that. So we didn't, I think he returned one series before they put Hayner in. So he stayed in the game, and after the game, he said it was like a bruise and didn't sound too concerning. But I know they're going to take pictures of it and look at it. So all 4 to 5 of those, depending on how Shuck falls, we'll wait and see how that plays out. But I don't think any of those were the soft tissue injuries that I've heard or the couple that we saw happen, but we don't know. That's the one thing that, if it is, that should be avoidable. It's plagued us, and it would disappoint me if that gets added to the list of stuff from the last couple seasons that pops up. But if this is just normal football injuries, wear and tear of this point in training camp, whatever, that's to be expected. I had 3 players trending down in a big bad way. The first one is Isaiah Foskey. I, I just think everybody, like I said, could probably agree that, look, the way Rumph played, notwithstanding his pre-snap penalty, way definitely Diggs showed out yesterday. Our top 3 edge guys, Cam, Granderson, and Young, didn't play. They likely to be the top 3, so you probably have only a couple spots left. Going, I don't think he did himself any favors. He played 41 snaps. Diggs, like we said, grabbed 40. Rumph grabbed 34. They both had sacks. And I think he was clearly outplayed by both. One of the plays that comes to mind that was a knock for him, but a great play for Diggs, was on a wide run left to his side. He steps up aggressively. He does everything right till he gets to the backfield to make the tackle for the loss and completely whiffs on the tackle. That's the play I was saying where Diggs came all the way from the other side in pursuit and cleaned it up. And Diggs ends up getting the tackle from the loss, coming from the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. When Foskey, for 75% of the play, did everything right, but the critical last 25% couldn't come through. Also, the touchdown run late in the game, got exposed a little bit there, so I think he's trending the wrong way. One of our free agent signings who was supposed to solve all the depth issues on the offensive line, or at least a lot of them, Dylan Radins, grabs 54 snaps, and look, he just didn't have a good game. Penalties. He had on one of those sacks early in the game, or at least quarterback hit. I don't know if it was a sack or not, but the one he whiffs on the right side completely on a block, and he had a free runner running in at Rattler, and a couple, like we said, penalties, holding penalty, an illegal formation penalty. If not for depth issues, if we do have a couple of guys in Clapp and Penning going to miss time, when you got guys like Torticelli, Kyle Hergel played an awful lot of that game. I didn't see anything bad nor anything exceptionally good about him, but implies to me he was fairly solid because he wasn't picking up penalties and he wasn't getting pointed out for missing blocks and stuff like Radons did. So I think that's 100% trending the wrong way. Jake Hayner, look, he just looked exactly like the guy I watched in the first half of Washington game last year in a preseason game against, granted, a good football team, but it mopped up basically work in the fourth quarter with threes and lower running around out there on both sides of the field. That not good, and I can't see where what he came in and did. It's in it just it looked bad. The results weren't good. Throws a bad interception in there. I think at this point he's pretty much played himself out of the quarterback competition, but we'll see. So that's my 4 takeaways. I had at one point, I had seen like 20 of them written down. So just narrowed it down. So we'll probably revisit this, especially on Wednesday, because one of the things I didn't get to, and I want to bitch about this one, is the running game and to a certain extent some of the running backs, but um, I think that was more of an O-line issue. So I'd like to wrap all it up, take a shot at that on Wednesday, and kind of go through with the running backs that did and what that's looking like out behind Alvin, which is going to be shaky right now. So drop them down in the comments. Let me know what you thought of yesterday's game. Um, I know there's more positive in there than I'm getting credit for, but it's just real hard when I'm starting very early in the game, looking at this is reminding me too much of last season and the season before, et cetera, to really focus it. So I'm also going to attempt to rewatch the game now that maybe I can be a little more, maybe a little more fair where I need to be and a lot less critical in some areas. But we'll see how it turns out. First time here, you like what you saw, please hit the like, the share, the subscribe, get the interactions up for me. Still growing the channel. Thank you, each and every one of you, for your support. We will be back here on Wednesday, likely talking a little bit the offense and the running game and maybe dive into some more defensive stuff. So till I see you then, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.